Are you feeling overwhelmed this Christmas season? Maybe it's the end of the year projects that you're trying to accomplish at work, or all the shopping that you need to do and the Christmas parties that you need to attend. Or maybe you're already thinking about the new year and trying to get ahead. Today, I want to be sharing with you two simple questions to help you clarify what's important and get more of it done. To clarify what's important and get more of it done. Welcome back, or if it's your first time, to the Can I Ask You a Question podcast. Each week on the show, we're exploring questions and unlocking wisdom through solo episodes with myself and deep dive interviews with the most interesting people in my world. Today, the question we're exploring as we look to help you get more done in this sometimes challenging and overwhelming season is this: how can I get more done this Christmas season? Let's dive in. And the answer to how can I get it more done is essentially to ask two simple questions that are going to then set you up for success. And the question number one is this: what's most important to me long term? What's most important to me long term? In the hustle of the present, we can lose sight of our long-term goals, what we really want. As busy as you are, it's essential to take a moment to stop and really ask yourself, what is it that you want to accomplish? Once you know what's really important, as counterintuitive as it may seem, drop everything else and make this, as Gary Keller would say, I think an author, the one thing on your to-do list. Drop everything else, let it go as much as you can reasonably do, and make that thing that's really important to you the one thing on your to-do list. You might accomplish less in terms of volume, but you will have accomplished more in terms of value, in terms of actually doing something that will matter 5 months from now, 5 years from now, 5 decades from now. I did this myself today. I've been researching other creators and seeking to improve and grow this show, the podcast. And so, I'm looking at them and I'm just bringing in so much information and seeing how they post their videos. If you're watching here on YouTube, or how they're doing it on different platforms, what their strategy is on Instagram and other social platforms. Are they just doing audio or video? Are they on lots of different social media platforms? Are they reposting things the same everywhere, or is it different? Whether they have an email list or not. And I'm just absorbing so much information and I'm trying to learn. And for a long time, I felt overwhelmed by all that I saw that they were doing. And it took a long time really thinking about it for me to clarify that the number one thing that I want to do is to grow this show. Everything else either serves that purpose, or for now it's a distraction and it's on the chopping block, or at least it's up for negotiation. There are so many good opportunities, but you're looking for that singular or very small list of opportunities that align with a thing that you most want. And it's hard sometimes to let go of all the other stuff and say, well, I want all of it. I want to do all of it. But if you try to do everything, you're going to probably do nothing very well or make very much progress. But if you will focus, there's a lot of power. In my case, it truly was a long-term career goal. As I really thought about what is the real win, what am I after, I realized that more of you watching and listening to this show was more important than people who are going to be maybe following me on Instagram, and maybe you'll follow me there as well, and that's great. But I realized that the long-term win, what it was and what it wasn't. Maybe your goal, your long-term goal, might be personal, like having a close relationship with your kids. And maybe it's not long in terms of like 5-10 years. Maybe it's over the next few years or a few months, whatever. But if you realize that's your goal, then let's say this holiday season, instead of making it the best Christmas ever and having just to maximize and do everything, maybe that's less important. And you just simply create sustainable traditions that you can do for years to come, because you realize your goal is not to beat the neighbor down the street and what they're doing with their kids, or some other thing, or to match what someone's doing on social. Your goal isn't to just have one great Christmas, but it's to year after year as they get older, really win their heart and love your kids in such a way that when they're adults, they're going to still want to be with you and hang with you. And if you realize that's your goal, then by implication, you realize all the other things that they lose their importance, they lose their pressure. And now actually the thing that really matters becomes more doable because it becomes kind of the only thing left on your your agenda. Whatever the answer is, once you know what's most important to accomplish long term, focus on that and let everything take a back seat. I just want to pause on this idea for a moment. If you, the episode title is essentially, let me remind myself of the title, is, overwhelmed this Christmas. If you clicked on this, it's probably because you're feeling a bit overwhelmed. That's how I was feeling today. Overwhelmed at work, overwhelmed with personal life. Like you have more to-dos than you have time in the day. And so I want to encourage you to if you want to solve this, then actually walk this process out. Ask what's most important in the long term and give yourself permission to let the other things go, to let the other things slide. You're not being lazy. You're actually being strategic and intentional and setting yourself up in a realistic way to actually accomplish what's most important. And like I said, and I kind of liked the way I phrased that, is you might accomplish less in terms of volume, but you're going to accomplish more in terms of actual value. And I think that's what we're after here. And so that is question number one. The two simple questions are going to help you overcome overwhelm and get more done this Christmas season and any season where you are, like I said, having more to-dos than time in the day. Question number two is this. You're going to ask yourself, what can I realistically do today? Recently, and I think I said this on last week's episode of the podcast, the show as well, is I've been talking with people, and in my own life, there's just been this theme of perfectionism. There's been this theme of unrealistic expectations for ourselves and how much we can do in a day, and the pressure that we put on ourselves. And so I want you to ask, what can I realistically do today? Now that you've narrowed down to the one thing that you really want to accomplish, it's time to get practical and ask yourself, what can you realistically do today? Real activity today is so much better than a perfect plan put off until tomorrow. Let me say that again to you, especially all of you perfectionists in the back of the room, front of the room, whatever. If you're perfectionist, you're probably in the front of the proverbial classroom, your teacher's pet. Real activity today is so much better than a perfect plan put off until tomorrow. Just to use my own example again, tonight it's kind of late actually that I'm recording this episode, and very late, likely I'm gonna have somewhat of a late night getting it prepped and set so it can release on time on the Tuesday mornings. And, so I'm facing this deadline to get the podcast released in the mornings. And I'd like to have had more time to make the episode longer, maybe add more content, put more time into refining it. But that just simply isn't an option now here, literally, as I'm recording this. There's just a literal clock before I got, I guess, wake up in the morning tomorrow and kind of move on with the day. And so my choice was clear. Do nothing because it wasn't going to be perfect, or to ship it, to take, like the package, the product, and to ship it out. And I chose to, air quotes, to ship it, to produce this episode that hopefully now you're enjoying and benefiting from, to take the product and to produce it, to send it out to, I'm not saying a bad word here, to like a postal service, to ship it. And I chose to ship it, to get it out. Parkinson's law, it's a productivity law, I guess, and it essentially says this, that work grows to fill the time allotted to it. So if you got 5 hours for a project, it's going to take all 5 hours to get it done. If you got 2 hours, you're going to probably get the whole project done in 2 hours. If you get all of a sudden, find out that your next appointment's canceled and you have 7 hours, you're going to probably take all 7. But it's not necessarily going to have been a better project. Work grows to fill the time allotted to it. So, if I'd given myself 2 times as long to prepare this episode, I would have filled it, but the episode would not necessarily have been twice as good, 2 times better. And that is the same thing with yourself is, it'd be so easy. It's so tempting to do nothing because what we can realistically do feels small or simple or insignificant, and yet real action done is way more important than a perfect plan that you put off until tomorrow. And often you're going to be surprised at how good of work you're able to put out in a compressed amount of time. I have found this. I come from a videography and filmmaking background, and commercials and interviews and things like that. And I've found that almost always it was the first and it was the last take that someone did that was what was used. It's almost never in the middle. And so it would almost be better to have done just like 3 takes, get a first one, get a last one, because in the middle there's just, it was weird, but so often that the fluff. And many times it would be better just to go at the very first take. It's you think you're going to get better, but you end up tripping up in different ways. You end up going in circles, and there's something about when you just have a deadline to get something out that you actually will accomplish more than you think and at a higher quality than you think, even though you don't have the amount of time that you would like. There's this saying that I love, which is that the necessity is the mother of invention. And for different people kind of talk about this concept that limitations, we think that they are an enemy to art or to creativity or to excellence, but actually many times limitations are the thing that forces that creativity, that are actually a gift because it frames it in and it gives you some context. If you're facing, like I said, you clicked on this video with the title, overwhelmed this Christmas, and maybe you're watching in a different season, overwhelmed this summer, overwhelmed this February, whatever time it is when you're watching this or listening to this. Or as you remember these principles for another time, when you're feeling overwhelmed, it can feel like a curse, but actually that pressure can become like the frame around the canvas that helps frame in the art you're going to do. And the art could be the elegant way that you do a Google sheet or an Excel sheet and do administration or get those numbers in and do that report, or it could be a song or a business. Actually embracing limitations and recognizing that they're going to draw something out of us. I know personally I'm a bit of a procrastinator, and there's something about that last minute push that kind of pushes me over the edge, gets me to focus, and helps me bring out kind of my best. And so don't despair if you're feeling limited, and don't underestimate how much you actually are going to be able to accomplish if you will step out. So, question 1, it helps you clarify the basket. This is kind of a basketball analogy. It helps you clarify the basket. What's most important long term? So you're not aiming in the middle of the court and shooting off into the crowd. That's where you find out where the basket's at. And this question number 2, what can I realistically do today? It helps you to take the shot. It gives you that context and hopefully that motivation to just take the shot. Don't let perfectionism keep you from accomplishing what is important today. It does add up. Don't underestimate it. Just a bonus thought as we're actually wrapping up on a little bit shorter episode this week. I hope it's still helpful and encouraging, and maybe exactly what you need to get unstuck and push past the overwhelm and get more done this Christmas season and this specific day whenever you're watching or listening. Here's a bonus thought. I find that after I've accomplished a more doable step or two towards an important goal, and I've taken that shot, even if it seemed small, I usually feel energized and end up doing even more than I ever could have hoped to accomplish before the day is through. There's just something about the momentum of just starting ends up carrying you farther than you dare attempt when you're feeling stuck and overwhelmed. And this is, I'm not the first person to kind of realize this or kind of figure out this concept, but there's just something about starting. And for me, sometimes the way I kind of visualize out of my head or think about that is like, I'm going to do this one more thing before I take a break or before I go get my cup of coffee or whatever. And I'm going to see how I feel on the other side of that task. today's analogies are all about the podcast, and there's a bit of work to set up the whole setup to record and film this, and that can be a barrier to beginning. And so even tonight, it's like let me set up the first part, let me get that ready, and let me see how I feel on the other side of that. And on the front end of a challenge, and the front end of a huge to-do list of things, even once you have focused in on what's important, it can feel so daunting. And yet, almost like, imagine a roller coaster. If you've ever been on a roller coaster, as you begin, you're ascending into that first pinnacle, when it's going to be a drop in the coaster, the excitement begins. It's like chink, chink. If you can see my hands, if you're watching this, chink, 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 you're just clinking up. And what seems so far away, or I've done some mountain hiking, and that peak seems so far away, but every step gets a little closer until this point where you're like, I think I can actually make the finish line. And you find this new energy to proceed. And so I invite you to kind of trick your mind, yourself a little bit, and don't plan to do it all in a night. Don't plan to do it all in a day. Do a measurable amount. But if there's momentum's there, then, all things being equal, take advantage of it, keep pressing on, and you might find yourself really surpassing your goals in a given day. So reminder, question number 1, these 2 simple questions to help you beat the overwhelm of this Christmas season. Question number 1, what's most important to me long term? It's going to help you clarify and make sure you're going the right direction. And question number 2, what can I realistically do today? And then the action step is go out and do it. Whatever, ask those questions here and now with me on the podcast, and then go out and do them. With that, I just want to thank you for being a subscriber, of watching and listening to this podcast, this show on YouTube or Spotify or Apple, or wherever you're watching or listening. Wherever you are watching or listening, would you rate it? Would you review it? And would you share it with a friend? Would you help spread the word of what we're doing here? And with that, God bless you, everybody. Have a great Christmas season. Have a wonderful day. You can do it. And I will see you next Tuesday with another episode.